So what are the implications of all this? I've started to now come to see fluidity not as something that's just specific to women, but as a general feature of human sexuality. And certainly this is something that you find in a lot of the historical and cross-cultural literature. I mean, if you read anthropological reports, you find plenty of evidence of fluidity, and they think we're crazy for having these, categories. And it's one thing to be like, I think historically we used to be like, oh, they don't realize that their fluid people are really gay people. And now I'm like, oh, we don't realize that our gay people are really like their fluid people. It's the same population. Fluidity is a general feature of human sexuality. The other thing I think is really relevant, I'm not suggesting that we should throw out categories like, gay and bisexual. I think that they're useful, but I think we have to remember as researchers that they're heuristics, they're shortcuts, that they're useful for making general sense out of the differences between people with exclusive patterns versus bisexual patterns versus mostly but not completely heterosexual patterns. But they are shortcuts. We're not, in fact, cutting nature at its joints. We're kind of imposing some joints on a very messy phenomenon. And I still think it's meaningful to make those differences and to use them to recruit samples and to do studies because they have meaning in our culture, but we have to be careful about presuming that they represent natural phenomena. I think the natural phenomena is a messy phenomena, like height, and is not categorical. Now, one of the things that I think is relevant and tricky is that although it's perfectly fine for researchers to be like, wow, sexuality is fluid and those categories don't have any meaning, the truth is that at a political level, we have advocated for the civil rights of LGBT people on the basis of them being LGBT, right? We've used categories as a part of our strategy for social policy and for acceptance. And that is really, really tricky now that we know that it's not true. This, came to my awareness in a really uncomfortable way during the most recent Supreme Court cases when I found out in, I guess it was around May, I got an email from the lawyer for our side, the friendly, gay-friendly lawyer, I can't remember her name, saying, we've gotten, a brief has been submitted to the Supreme Court and it references your work and we'd like you to take a look at it and let's talk about, whether, we want to file an affidavit. So basically this was a very detailed brief and very well written, arguing that if you look at the history of equal protection cases that have gone up before the Supreme Court, the test that has been used to decide whether a group of people qualified for equal protection status was that they had to be a distinct, immutable group. And in fact, there have been Supreme Court cases that have tried to get equal protection status for older individuals, and they failed. Why? Older individuals are too diverse. They're not a distinct group. You can have older individuals who face discrimination, and also your age changes over the lifespan. Who are the older individuals? They're not the same group 1 year as they are another. Supreme Court wouldn't grant them status. Mentally disabled individuals did not get equal protection status in front of the Supreme Court. Why? Because they're too diverse. Some individuals have very severe disabilities. Some individuals don't have very severe disabilities. Some individuals' disability changes over time. So this author basically used this case law and said, look at Dr. Diamond's work. She shows that sexuality is fluid. The population of individuals with same-sex attractions in 1 year may be different than it is in another year, and the population is incredibly diverse. Some individuals have exclusive attractions. Some people have non-exclusive attractions. Some people can marry someone of the same sex. Some people could marry, someone of either sexes. They just don't meet the standard that the Supreme Court itself has set up. And I read this and I'm like, Judy, well, I've destroyed my people. All I could do, and I submitted an affidavit that basically said, I disagree with the conclusions being drawn from my work, but I couldn't disagree with what they were saying about my work. Everything that they were saying about my work was actually true. Are we a diverse group? Yeah. Does it change? Yeah. Oh my God, we're screwed, right? Now, luckily, I remember listening to the argumentation. It didn't seem, the whole thing about criteria for equal protection status, it didn't really come up The only time it really came up, Scalia asked one question about whether gay people were too powerful to qualify, to need equal protection status. But the issue of the diversity of the group never came up, thank God. And as far as I can tell, it hasn't come up in the dissenting opinions. So we dodged a bullet. However, I feel like that was a really important bullet to dodge, because it suggests to me that we can make strong claims for civil rights protections that don't rely on the immutability and distinctiveness and uniqueness of these groups. We can make claims for civil rights protections based on the fact that of just, we are equal people and people's, rights deserve protection. I feel like as a community, the queers have to stop saying, please help us, we're born this way and we can't change, as an argument for legal standing. I don't think we need that argument, and that argument is going to bite us in the ass, because now we know that there's enough data out there that the other side is aware of as much as we are aware of it. And it's time for us to make better arguments for why we need equal rights and privileges. And finally, in terms of a research, because that's a policy perspective, but from a research perspective, I've spent most of my life studying gay and bisexual women, and now I'm like, wow, the really crazy people are the gay men and the heterosexual women. They are far more interesting. And so I feel like if I look at the next 15 years of my career, my question is, what is up with those crazy heterosexual women and those crazy gay men? And maybe if you have me back in another 15 years, I'll have an answer to that. Thank you very much.